Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit about the French colonial group type, which I collected from 1976 to 2019 when I sold the collection. But what it is a look at, from the point of view of the collection of locally produced AR markings, the Avis de Réception, return receipt markings that were produced locally during the time of the group type. And just a little historic background: the fee for a return receipt in the French colonial area at the time was 10 centimes during the era of the group type, as I say. Interestingly, between 1892 and 1898, the 10-cent fee for the return receipt was actually prepaid in stamps on the outgoing envelope, and it was the responsibility of the receiving post office to create the return receipt and send it back to the originating post office. After 1898, the return receipt actually accompanied the outgoing letter to the receiving office, which processed the receipt and sent it back to the originating office. So you have that interesting little break as to how the receipts were handled. And I dropped all of this into an article I did, and gosh, I was amazed. It's back in more than 10 years ago, where I did an article in the France and Colonies philatelist on these locally produced return receipt marks. So let's just look at a standard one first, the standard AR hand stamp that was used throughout the French community. For years, I wondered, what do you call this hand stamp? Okay, it's octagonal, it's got 8 sides, and the British have a word, it's chamfered.
When you have it take off the corner and with a
Right.
diagonal cut.
Right. It makes it
It's called
turns.
chamfering. It's in in furniture design and so on. That's a
Okay, well,
chamfered edge.
what we have here on the right, lower right, is a registered letter from the little village of Bafulabe in the French Sudan, written to Paris, posted March 11th, 1896. There's a manuscript endorsement and signature on the reverse that validates the military concession rate, which was 15 centimes in lieu of 25 centime rate. The military concession rate was applicable to troops on station. Troops in actual combat normally got full free franchise. The military concession rate is confirmed by this French packet marking here. You notice it says Corps d'Armée, and then line J, packet boat F Francais number 3, just identifies the packet. The posted rate on this is 50 centimes, which is comprised of 15 centimes, the military concession rate, 25 centimes registration, and 10 centimes for the return receipt. And as I said, it was up to the receiving post office to recreate that, or to create that receipt. Uh, the AR hand stamp is the traditional one that was used in France, the French offices, and the French colonies. It was supplied as part of the standard package to the post offices. And as I noted, at this period, the arrival office created the return receipt and sent it back. And this is just a nice close-up. It's actually really a nice cover. It's got all sorts of elements. I had a good friend. I'll tell you a little story here. The Reverend Charles Fitz, he was pastor of the Second Presbyterian Church in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and his field was philately and murder. Interesting for a minister to collect. And Charlie always emphasized, when you have a philatelic item, how many elements does it bring to the collection? And this one brings a lot of nice elements to a given piece.
The R marking just means registered, I suppose.
Registration, yeah, that's
And
a
so it
stand.
would be some letters would have just the R, but without the AR if no return receipt was requested.
Right. If just R means registration, that's all. And It then brought about all the standard registration procedures, namely every post office had to sign it in, keep a record of it, and when it came, when it left, and often that's when you see all these numbers, put on by different post offices. You have to have the AR or some indication of it to get the return receipt, and you'll see a little bit of that. This is actually one of these return receipts for a letter that was sent from Papeete in French Oceania to Baden-Baden, and it had a request for a return receipt, and this is how the post office in Baden-Baden handled that. They apparently didn't have a return receipt envelope available, so they took one that was apparently used for sending letters back to the point of origin. That's my guess based on the Tzuruk. And they crossed that out and wrote below it Avis de Réception to indicate it was carrying a return receipt. And you can see it was posted in Baden-Baden on 4/28/94. If you look up top at the little image, it's got a Bremen transit, so it came from Bremen. It probably entered the US in New York, traveled across the country by train. Then you see it has the San Francisco registry label. And just about 2 months later on the back, it's got the Papeete arrival. So it took almost 2 months. And inside this was the return receipt for a registered letter sent from Papeete in April 1894. Of course, the receipt is not in there now. That would be really wonderful. So let's look at some of the locally produced AR hand stamps, not issued by the government in Paris. And here we have a double weight registered letter from Haiphong in 1895 to Philadelphia via French packet line N. It's based on a 15-centime group type postal stationery envelope, and it's at an 85-centime rate, which corresponds to 2 times 25 centimes for postage, double weight letter, 25 centimes for registration, and 10 centimes for the return receipt, okay? And again, the return receipt had to be created. And it's got this very nice boxed AR hand stamp that was fabricated locally in Haiphong for whatever reason, for use by the post office. And they even added a Haiphong hand stamp there just to let the arriving office in Philadelphia know the return receipt was going back to Haiphong.
Did you have to send things registered in order to get the return receipt, or you could do
No, they had to be registered. This is an amazing example of a similar boxed AR hand stamp produced locally. It's on a letter franked at 1 franc, which means it was triple weight registered from Haiphong to Lara, Australia, in the state of Victoria. Very, very nice usage of that 1 franc stamp. But what makes it, to me, exceptional, and it's the only example I've ever seen, you see the return receipt above? That's the return receipt for that letter, okay? So these two have been reunited. This is 1901. That meant you put the 10 centimes on the return receipt. It was attached to the outgoing letter, and then the return receipt was processed at the post office of destination and sent back to the post office of origin. So there's the return receipt for this letter going back to Monsieur Gutzwiller, Commissioner of Posts in Haiphong. And these have been united. I got this from Cherrystone here in the East Coast, and it's just an amazing thing. First time I've seen the reuniting of both pieces. Yep.
How do you know that they belong together?
Because when you open it up, it shows the addressee for this letter, the date the letter was posted. So all the information on this envelope is in that return receipt. Here's another one from Haiphong, but now a little later. It's 1905. It's very similar. It's boxed AR, but I think it's a different hand stamp. This one was posted at the 75 centime rate, which was 2 times 25 centimes postage, 25 centimes registration. But there was an error in this that wasn't caught when you look at the whole ensemble. Somebody tried to put 50 centimes and 2 centime stamps on this envelope, and they were short one. Okay, but I think the postmaster or the postal clerk actually lost count. He didn't count 25, or he thought he counted 25, and there are only 24. So it's a little under frank, but quite an unusual letter. Here's one from Anjouan. Does everybody know where Anjouan is? It's one of the Comoro Islands, north of Madagascar. And this is the 1 franc of Anjouan group type used from Anjouan. It's after 1898. I don't remember the date on this, and I can't read it. That's the locally fabricated AR return receipt. This is triple weight registered. That's the 1 franc, and the 10 centimes was on the return receipt. And when I Googled James Anthony Folger, the addressee, the suggestion was that he was already into coffee. This is somebody from the Folger family, not involved in the coffee business in the United States. Kind of an unusual addendum to a very, very nice AR letter. So now we get into something a little different. We get into manuscript return receipt requests. This is actually from the town of Kayes, Kayes, French Sudan. Okay, it's a registered military concession rate letter with a request for return receipt from Kayes, September 14th, 1894. And this is right at the time of the opening of the post office at Kayes, when there was a shortage of stamps. Okay, they were actually for regular 25 centime letters and 50 centime registered letters. They had created special hand stamps to note that this postage was paid in cash. Well, here's somebody put in a registered military correspondent concession rate letter from Kayes, and the franking is 50 centimes. You see the 15, the 25, and the 10. 2 group types, the 15 and 25. The 10 centime is the Dubois issue of the French colonies, which apparently they had available in Kayes at this time. And if you look carefully, you can see these are not French Sudan stamps, they're Senegal stamps. Okay, somebody had Senegal stamps available. They were used at the post office from Kayes at a time where they didn't have a lot of stamps, and this use was accepted. You look at the top and it says Occupation Forces of the Sudan, and it's a pharmacy unit that's part of the Marines. It's with a signature that validates the 15 centime concession rate in lieu of the 25 centimes. You see it's validated just to the left with the Corps d'Armée, line J, packet boat F, Francais number 2. So that validates the military concession rate. And at the extreme left, you see a manuscript, Accusé de Réception. That's the request for a return receipt for this letter, okay? They had no AR hand stamp, and so they were marking them in manuscript. So you just have all sorts of elements with this. It's military correspondence. It's got a very nice French packet date stamp, use of Senegal stamps, use of the type de bois, and then you have the request for a return receipt in full manuscript at the left. Here's one from the colony of Benin. Benin is further down along the arm of West Africa. The interesting thing about Benin, when the group type came out in 1892, the colony was just a coastal colony on the Gulf of Benin. So the indicia for the colony reads Gulf de Benin, okay? Those stamps were available for the first couple of years, but then they were quickly replaced by stamps with Benin in the legend area. And then ultimately, I think it was 1899, the whole colony became Dahomey. So that's the Benin is a colony that has Benin Dahomey, three different group type issues for one little colony. And again, this is registered military concession rate. You see the hand stamp of the unit at the upper left and the manuscript endorsement to validate the rate. It knows it's the Expeditionary Forces, and they're calling it Dahomey. It went via the packet Loango to Marseille. That's the packet that transited the West African coast. Somebody added a manuscript AR for the return receipt. So it's the proper rate, 25 centimes registration, 15 postage, military concession rate, and 10 centimes for the return receipt.
Is there any particular reason why the cancellation was done twice?
That was typical for the French. I mean, they'd use one for the canceling the stamps, and frequently one just on the cover so you could read it. What's really nice about this, it's the same thing. Oh, this is from Cotonou. This is from Porto Novo, another of the major ports in Benin, at the 50 centime rate, the same rate. But notice the date stamp. It's the military correspondence date stamp, correspondance militaire, Porto Novo, Benin. And you have the validation. And then right here, you have the manuscript AR for the request for the return receipt, because there was no AR available at that time. And here we go all the way over to New Caledonia, which is in the news today. I don't know if you guys are reading your New Caledonia news with all the news in the United States, but there's actually quite a bit of turmoil going on in New Caledonia as the locals want to separate from France. Well, here's an 1898 letter from the little village of La Foa. You see September 1898. It's a very rare date stamp. A few of the offices, maybe 5 or 6, had, instead of the name New Caledonia in the date stamp, they had POSTES. When you see an example of that cancel, and you see just what we're talking about, Alan, that's a separate strike beyond the ones that are tying the stamps. This one, you see the sender has written up at the top left, recommandé avec accusé de réception. He's requesting a return receipt. And then below that, you see 311 AR. That's what the postal clerk wrote on it. The registered letter number was 311, the AR for the return receipt. And the postage on it is 15 centimes local postage. It's just going locally in New Caledonia. 25 centimes registration and 10 for the return receipt, because that's what they were doing in New Caledonia. Now we get back to some actual hand stamps, and if we go to Hanoi, a registered letter from Hanoi, the main post office in Hanoi, and you see that boxed AR to the left, where they actually have a space in the hand stamp to write in the registry number of the letter. And to my knowledge, this is the only one of these that's known so far. So it's quite rare, quite unusual, and it's the proper 60 centime rate, 25 postage, 25 registration, 10 for the return receipt. Here's one from Noumea, New Caledonia. This is a double weight registered letter, 25 centimes registration, 50, 2 times 25 postage, and then the 10 centimes for the AR. And you can see they've created the AR in Noumea just out of some letters that they probably got at a local print shop and put together an AR hand stamp, possibly backing up a real one, because I think they may have had a regular issued one at the time. Here's another one from New Caledonia, from the village of Borai, a small village in the colony. It's after 1899, so it's a double weight registered letter, 2 times 15, plus 25, and the AR hand stamp up here. Again, somebody's just gotten some letters that they've put together in a locally created return receipt request.
CE overprint?
Yeah, that's those overprints were done in the early 1900s when there were shortages of 5, 10, and 15 centime stamps, which were used for most of the local frankings. So they created these overprints. I think these were necessary. A lot of the colonies overprints, like Guadeloupe, overprints were created for the philatelic market. Okay, New Caledonia had its own version of that when it created its 50th anniversary overprint hand stamps with the Kagu bird. They were trying to sell those new overprinted group type stamps internationally and make money, but the government in France wouldn't let them do so, so they could only use them on local mail. But these are genuine overprints, revaluations of higher valued stamps. And here's a 50 centime rate from the village of Theo, 1902. So I'm not sure of the postage on this one, but it does have a remarkable AR hand stamp here, big bold letters to let you know that they were requesting a return receipt on this one. And finally, we come to the colony of French Oceania, Papeete. They never received, during the group type period, that standard chamfered AR hand stamp. They created their own, this encircled AR hand stamp. And here's a very nice example of that on a piece of postal stationery: 25 centimes postage, 25 centimes registration, 10 centimes for the return receipt. So you see it's 97, going to Montreal, Canada. So this is a genuine non-philatelic letter showing that nice return receipt. Couldn't resist but show a picture of my page that showed this cover. This is in my exhibit that I no longer have. I had 2 examples of this AR hand stamp. The lower one is on a letter franked at 35 centimes. Starting in 1906, the French community rate dropped to 10 centimes. So registration was with registration, it was 35. And they came out with a new 35 centime stamp. And it's a little bit of a rarity.
Where is the 10 centime for the return receipt?
That's on the return receipt. Okay, there was this is after 1898. So the return receipt accompanies the letter and then is processed by the receiving post office and mailed back to the sending post office. So this is very nice, showing that single use of the 35. As I said, it's rare, but it's not super rare. The really super rare ones is use of the 45 centime stamp. That was a double weight registered for double weight registered mail. And finally, the last cover, and this is really a spectacular cover. It's from St. Pierre and Miquelon, okay? And this is 1897, so the 10 centimes is on the envelope. We've got from the town of St. Pierre, the 40 and 110 is the postage rate, 25.25 postage and registration, 10 centimes for the return receipt, and this really bold, spectacular AR. And the good thing about this cover, and this is my page that I had in the St. Pierre and Miquelon exhibit. This is a unique usage of that AR. It's the only one we know of, and that uniqueness held up for the sale when I sold this cover, and I was pleased with the realization that it brought. There are still a number of serious St. Pierre and Miquelon collectors out there. So it brought what I thought was a enjoyable price. And that's it. So
Wow.
that's my story of locally produced AR markings.